Hello friends, welcome to MOM, the Hindu News Analysis program presented by DEEKSHA SPACE. Today in this program we are going to look after December 26th, 2020, the Hindu newspaper. Today's next article, first data from Chandrayaan2 Out. So before going into the details of the data which ISRO has released to the public domain, first we will understand what Chandrayaan mission 2 was about. So Chandrayaan 2 was the first mission to land on the moon's south polar region. So this was the first mission in order to launch or meet on the south polar region. This was launched on 22nd July 2019, which consisted of orbiter, lander which was known as Vikram, rover which were known as Pragyan. So these were the details with respect to Chandrayaan 2 mission which were launched. With respect to the vehicle which carried it was GSLV Mark 3. So GSLV Mark 3 was the vehicle through which Chandrayaan 2 was carried out, and it was a 3-stage vehicle having powerful launcher up to date till now in India, and it was capable of carrying 4 tons of satellites to geosynchronous transfer orbit is the details which needs to be understood with respect to the launch vehicle which was sent. So there is a liquid stage, there is a solid rocket booster stage, there is a cryogenic stage. So this is the 3-stage GSLV Mark 3. So these were the details. So after 2019, now since the Chandrayaan is operational and it is working fine, the data has been released, and this data is stored in planetary data system 4 format. Indian Space Data Center is the nodal center or nodal agency with respect to storage of data with respect to planetary missions of the ISRO. So it is stored in PD4 system. Once it is authorized or once it is technically correct, then it is made public to the scientist community in the public domain. So that is made in the Pradhan portal, which is hosted by Indian Space Science Data Center. So ISSDC is what is hosting this Pradhan portal, and the data with respect to the Chandrayaan 2 are available for the public mode as of now. Today's next article, government allotments being rationalized. This article we are going to discuss in the context of Housing and Urban Affairs Minister announcing a pattern or the portal with respect to e-Sampada. This portal is going to boost with respect to transparency and accountability in providing various estates and services to adopt digital technologies. So this will be a single online platform for management of all Government of India estate services, which has been launched on the occasion of Good Governance Day, that is December 25th. So this article needs to be understood in the basis of e-Sampada. So there is another scheme called Sampada, which is for food processing industry. This is e-Sampada for government estate services management. So please remember this. This might be a direct question with respect to prelims. Today's next article, National Textile Corporation to reopen mills in phased manner. This article we are going to discuss in the context of the management of National Textile Corporation has decided to reopen mills in a phased manner after COVID-19 pandemic, which were locked down. So the 23 National Textile Corporation mills in India, both are having raw stock and the materials finished are available as of now. So it is going to operationalize these mills is what is need to be understood. So before finishing this article, we will understand what this National Textile Corporation is, which is very important. So this is a company owned by Indian government, and it owns 23 working textile mills which produce yarn and fabric. The company was incorporated in the year 1968, and National Textile Corporation has made a turnaround with a short span to emerge as a debt-free company with a highly competitive revival strategy. It has developed a new marketing and corporate strategy, which is including revamping of all NTC stores and setting up of new NTC stores. Today's next article, India must strongly push for UK-EU trade pacts. This article we are discussing in the context of European Union and UK, which has clinged to post-Brexit trade pact. So they have signed a free trade accord among themselves before the Brexit, which is going to happen. However, there are concerns like India should push harder with respect to the free trade agreements in the both regions. However, there are experts from the industries which are pointing out that India might not benefit in the goods sector with free trade agreement in the both regions, but it might be beneficial for the India if it goes towards service sector, as IT in both markets, that is European Union and UK pact, does not cover the service which have signed on Thursday. So India has a potential to be acquired or captured in the service sector is what needs to be understood from this article. Today's next article, Article 356 and activist judiciary. In this article, we are going to look after the various dimensions with respect to Article 356. Today, this article we are discussing in the context of Andhra Pradesh High Court, which passed an order asking the government to come up with an argument to discuss with respect to the constitutional machinery breakdown in the state. We have discussed various articles in the previous Hindu newspaper analysis about this order which was passed, which was clearly a judicial overreach. Though Supreme Court has banned or though Supreme Court has stopped that order, in this article we are going to discuss about the provisions, what made the Andhra Pradesh High Court to come up with an order to question the constitutional machinery breakdown in the state. So here we have to discuss with respect to judicial activism also. Judicial activism is the power of judiciary. What is the power of judiciary? That is judicial review under Article 32. So the invokement of judicial review in order to set aside the government's act is known as judicial activism. So in the context of the country, democratic country which is running, judicial review is good, but it has to be used in a rare exception. But if a activist judiciary is invoked, that is not good for the country nor for the judiciary, because that will make the government to appoint the judges who are committed in order to make sure that the judicial review is in their favor. Today we are finding that the transfer of judges, which usually collegium recommends, is like an executive order as of transferring IAS officers, where an executive order is passed on. So in this article, as I said, we will be discussing what made the Andhra Pradesh High Court to invoke this order. As we all know, with respect to Article 356, if you look out the words which are given, there is a provision as such: if the President on the receipt of report from the governor of the state or otherwise. So there is a provision called or otherwise. Receipt of report from the governor or otherwise is given. So before going into the details with respect to or otherwise, we will understand the inclusion of Article 356. So first thing, no other liberal democratic country or constitution in the world has the provision of Article 356, which provides a provision with respect to removal of the government which is democratically elected by the people of the country, except Pakistan. So India and Pakistan are the only two countries or the only two democratic countries in the world which has this provision. And both these countries have borrowed the provision of Article 356 from Government of India Act 1935. Previously, the freedom fighters or the leaders of the freedom struggle were opposing to the provision of forcing the British government to suspend it. In Government of India Act 1935, there was a provision called Section 93, which helped to invoke the provisions of emergency, like state emergency, that is Article 356. But in the name of democracy, federalism and stability, our constitutional forefathers have incorporated in the constitution. On 11th June 1947, when it was agreed by the Constitution Assembly that the governor could use this as emergency power, at that point of time, governor was to be elected by the people of the state rather than nominated by the center. Our constitutional forefathers like G.B. Pant and Hridaynath Kunjru opposed this term or opposed this provision as virtual reproduction of 1935 Act, where our leaders of freedom struggle has opposed this provision. Whereas already Krishnaswamy justified the provision in the name of representative government at the center. As I was telling, that there is a word called or otherwise. If the president on the receipt of report from the governor of the state or otherwise. So we are going to look after this or otherwise. This provision with respect to Article 356 has come out after several revisions of Article 278. H.V. Kamath, Hridaynath Kamath termed Article 356 as a surgical operation for mere cold. and he criticized the word otherwise, which was included in the constitution and article 356, was got to know what this otherwise is, the meaning which is going to be portrayed in the future. As the governor had already been made nominee of the center by this time, he asked why the president could not have confidence in his nominee. He said, if he cannot have confidence in his own nominee, then let's wind up this assembly and go home. Otherwise, can include anything, including a presidential dream of breakdown of constitutional machinery in a state. So, he saw this provision as merely an surgical operation to the cold, is literally what he meant to say at that point of time. Nazruddin Ahmad also said that we are drifting perhaps unconsciously towards dictatorship, is what was his opinion. So the otherwise which has been used in article 356 can include anything, including a presidential dream of breakdown of constitutional machinery in a state. So the word otherwise was always a bone of contention during the debates of Constituent Assembly. Andhra Pradesh High Court was able to pass such an order by using a very term known as otherwise only. But this is not the first instance where judicial overreach has been happened. On August 13, 1997, Patna High Court bench of Chief Justice B.M. Lal and Justice S.K. Singh, while disapproving the functioning of Rabri Devi government, has observed that the governor's report was not conclusive regarding the invocation of Article 356. And the High Court also can report to the President about the breakdown of constitutional machinery in the state. So this is not the first time which has happened by Andhra Pradesh High Court. There was a provision which happened by the Patna High Court in 1997. So Article 356, if we look out historically, it has been misused or used at least some 125 times, though B.R. Ambedkar has assured that this provision will remain a dead letter. But this has not happened. Both Article 356 and Governor experiences have proven Ambedkar wrong, is what we can understand by the usage of the Article 356 in this entire period of journey. So many a times this has been used for only political considerations rather than any genuine breakdown of constitutional machinery. All presidents signed this presidential proclamation except K.R. Narayan, who twice returned the cabinet's recommendation on October 22nd, 1997 in respect of Kalyan Singh's government in Uttar Pradesh. Over a period of time, he also returned the cabinet's recommendation on September 25th, 1998 in respect of Rabri Devi's government in Bihar. So these were the two exceptions which K.R. Narayanan has shown in the period of his tenure as President of India. We have seen this Article 356, which was invoked for the first time in 1951 by Jawaharlal Nehru to remove the Gopi Chand Bhargav ministry in Punjab, though he enjoyed the majority. In 1959, it was again used against the majority opposition government EMS Nambi Dorad, that is in Kerala. At that point of time, the governor B. Ramakrishna Rao in his report said that government has lost support of the overwhelming majority of the people and belittled the fact of enjoying the confidence of the house. And he at that point of time said it is important to consider the members or the majority in the house only during the formation of the government and not its continuance. That feels really a strange logic to say that the government has lost the majority. Indira Gandhi has dubiously used this Article 356 as many as 27 times to remove many of the majority governments on the ground of political instability or political stability, absence of clear mandate or withdrawal of support. But the Janata government did worse than Mrs. Gandhi by removing majority Congress governments in one stroke on April 30th, 1997. The Supreme Court of India upheld that in a state of Rajasthan versus Union of India 1997. However, to the Janata government's one stroke bowling or one stroke batting, she gave an answer when she came back to power in 1980 by removing the opposition majority government at one go. In a similar fashion, Narendra Modi government also invoked Article 356 in Arunachal Pradesh on Republic Day itself in 2016. So there are situations where it has been misused or used, which actually thought of by the constitutional forefather Ambedkar as a dead letter. There is one notable case here we can understand that Article 356 was refused by P.V. Narasimha Rao's government prior to the demolition of Babri Masjid on December 6, 1992 as in the draft constitution. Emergency powers could be used to safeguard the legitimate interests of the minorities, and government was fully aware that there will be a constitutional machinery breakdown in Uttar Pradesh. However, the subsequent dismissal of three Bharatiya Janata Party governments in Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan and Himachal Pradesh, upheld by Supreme Court in S.R. Bommai versus Union of India, was wrong, as RSS ban was better implemented in these states and much greater violence had taken place in the Congress ruled states of Gujarat and Madhya Pradesh. Today, when many constitutional experts are of view that judiciary is increasingly coming more executive minded than executive itself, the Andhra Pradesh government where it passed an order with respect to the argument of constitutional machinery breakdown is worrisome sign. So ideally, the word otherwise, which is being given in the Article 356, should be deleted, or the provision should be used sparingly and never to remove a majority government is what needs to be understood in the entire article's discussion. Today's next article, the fallout of keying in the wrong labor codes. This article we are discussing in the context of the labor violence which has erupted at the Narsapura plant in Kolar, which is hardly 80 kilometers from Bangalore. So this happened on October 12th, and the company has said that around 50 crores damage has been happened and the workers were sent to jail. After which the company also took the responsibility of the violence, and as of now, Apple has withheld any further orders to Wistron, which is a Chinese supplier to Apple company. The company, which started in July, had around 2,000 permanent employees and around 7,000 contract workers. In the course of duration, it was seen that the reason for the violence which happened at the plant was non-payment of their wages or partial payment of wages, and delay has also happened during their payment of wages, and there were no any labor laws which were actually followed by the company, such as non-issuance of wage contract, employing women workers in night shift without providing any adequate delays. So this was the reason why the violence has erupted in the plant, and there are few dimensions which needs to be understood in order to understand the labor reforms journey in India and how India is going to be affected for its dream of becoming or boosting the domestic production, make in India, and enhancing national self-reliance, that is Atmanirbhar Bharat. So if you dig deeper and understand the incident, what happened, it is going to affect the high-profile global campaign of India with respect to FDI, especially the production-linked incentive scheme in order to boost domestic investment in mobile phone in manufacturing in the country. Western and its labor contractors who have violated the provisions of the law has led to the violence which we can clearly understood. But in July, the state government promulgated the ordinance of major labor laws, including Factories Act 1948. If you have to understand, the Factories Act 1948 regulates the ordinary working day length, overnight wages, hours of work, timings of shift, safety and health issues. However, due to the legalization issues, this is still pending with respect to the implementation, but there was a sudden change in the number of working hours from 8 hours to 12 hours. This is what needs to be understood as a background. Where the entire country was still struggling with respect to the pandemic problem in the country, the government was finding it as an opportunity to quickly change some of the legislations and ordinance with respect to labor laws in order to pursue or in order to motivate the foreign capital people or foreign investors to invest in India as an alternative location for China. So in India, the provisions were changed. As we have seen, the Factories Act 1948 was changed during this pandemic. However, the labor reforms or labor laws in India are cumbersome. If you look at, there are around 47 central labor laws and 200 state laws for organized workers in India. And there has been always steps taken in order to consolidate these central and state laws to simplicity. In 2019, Government of India consolidated 29 central laws into 4 labor codes and introduced as a bill in the parliament. The codes were concerning industrial relations, occupational safety, health and working conditions, and social security and wages. That is the Code Wages Bill 2019, which was passed last year, and the remaining 3 with respect to industrial relations, occupational safety, health and working conditions were passed in the month of September. These bills were passed without any adequate consultation with any stakeholders or legislations. If you look at the International Labour Organization, to which India is a signatory, has not followed its lines. If you look at China, for which we are trying to become an alternate investment destination, we have to have an understanding how China is actually doing or how it was successful industrially. If you look at the China has mandated the employers to give mandatory dormitory services to the workers close to the factories and other social security benefits. Because of the provision of dormitory, we don't find any of the slums in any industrial cities. That is the major reason. Chinese local government also compete with each other to offer excellent physical infrastructure and ensure adequate care, adequate credit to industrial enterprises through national development banks. There, the bureaucrats or the bureaucracy or provisional ruling party officials are dependent on the local economic performance. That is where their credibility is actually lying. But we don't see the same situation in India. We are seeing, rather than the other way around, we are seeing the opposite what is happening in India. If you look at the daily earnings in India, there is again a data which is actually worrisome. The average daily earning of workers in urban India as per 2018-19 labor force survey official periodic report, it is around 256 rupees per day. That is 6,400 rupees per month for 25 days. This is actually very less compared to 7th pay commission for central government employees report also. That is where the laborers are eager to work for an over period or overtime in order to earn more and lead their livelihood. These changes, yes, definitely will cause violence because there is no any security and there is no any platform where workers can come up with their grievances, and Western episode is a clear example of how any short term gains which are planned will cost the government at the end. The change in the working hours is also one of the report which has been submitted by the local labor department to the ministry, which has caused violence in the plant. Yes, during the pandemic, the government took it as an opportunity to get into the labor reforms, but that is costing now is what needs to be understood. So these are the lessons which need to be understood by the government. So Western dispute apparently turned back the clock back on the government's effort to boost domestic production and enhance the self-reliance Atmanirbhar Bharat dream which government has thought of. So these are the things which needs to be understood as of now in this present context with respect to labor reforms, what government of India is going on. The consolidation has to happen, but it has to happen with a clear vision of the future, not for the temporary gain of getting or making an India an alternative destination for China. Today's next article, limits of sovereignty. This article we are discussing in the context of the trade-free accord which was signed by UK with the European Union on Thursday. In that context, we are going to discuss this article. So, before Brexit, this is a major agreement which has been signed. After 2016, when Britain thought of leaving the largest trading bloc, this has been a bone of contention ki how it will grow or there will be no deal Brexit or what. But on Thursday, UK has signed with EU a trade-free accord in goods, which will help the country in order to potentially lose 4% of GDP over the next 15 years. But if UK would have left the European Union without any deal, it could have been a potential loss of 6% of GDP. So with this deal, UK is going to be beneficial, which needs to be understood the first. So UK on the other end, is dependent on European Union for at least 75% of food products, imports, and significance of zero duty trade for consumers and retail economy will be very much high, is what needs to be understood. UK, after the Brexit deal, which is going to be operational from January 1st, is deciding to work on Singapore on Thames growth model, the UK, which is trying to pursue in future course of time. So Singapore on Thames growth model. So this model, please read from Google. This is very important because this is what UK is going to follow in future. A separate video will also be made in order to make sure you have a complete understanding. So Singapore on Thames model is what UK is going to follow after Brexit, that is from January 1st. So after this transition, there are going to be few challenges with respect to border checks and red tapes which needs to be made minimum in order to make sure the supply chain is not disrupted and UK business will continue as it was before. After this deal also, there are few arrangements like European Union. There are 27 areas of mutual cooperation which is going to set limit for the national sovereignty, what Britain actually thought of and is coming out of European Union in order to have its greater national sovereignty which it thought of having. Next article, recharging DTH. This article we are discussing in the context of Union Cabinet's approval for a revised scheme for DTH television distributors beginning with 100% FDI, which is bringing a measure of calmness to the industry which was buffered or battling due to the technological changes and the revenue pressure this year. So this is going to be some point of relief and calmness to the industry. In this provision or in this approval, it has made sure that the license period will be increased to 20 years at present, which was 10 years, and the fees has been adjusted to 8% of the adjusted gross revenue, which was 10% of the adjusted gross revenue. Yes, these are the provisions which are going to be helpful for the DTH industry, but there are challenges such as high bandwidth internet and new generation entertainment providers like OTT platforms, Amazon, Netflix, whatever we are speaking as of now today. After this COVID-19 pandemic, we have seen that the urban viewers are migrating towards these platforms more than the DTH channels. In this context, the DTH industry is going to be under strain or under pressure for some more time, is what needs to be understood here. Indian Broadcasting Foundation would like to see whether there are any further liberations with respect to cross media ownership restrictions which are at present in this context in order to help the DTH growers or DTH to improvise their performances. The DTH industry or operators have been under arguments with respect to new tariff order for television which was passed by TRIA last year. So those were the issues with respect to the pricing and with respect to the carriers of channels which can be conducted, that is bucket. In group you have to do one and there is no pricing power with respect to this. So India, which is one of the biggest single market for audiences and estimated around 200 million cable operators or cable and satellite households regulating favoring the consumers in warranted. So this being so much big market, there is a provision or there is a need to look after for the growth of this industry, and the need is to understand audiences are won by the power of authentic programs and entertainment. So in this diverse cultural milieu and vibrant public sphere and a sporting tradition, there is space for everyone, and the best combination of technology and pricing will win the viewers' favor, is what needs to be understood from this article. This is all about today's The Hindu newspaper analysis. We'll meet up with new edition. Till then, take care. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat.